right? Blue Lock episode 12 was kind of mid. No, I think it was mid. There's a couple of good scenes with Baro. But other than that, it was back to Slide Lock as expected. Low priority episode, but I believe the last 2 episodes coming out on the 28th, it should be amazing all the way. Unless we get baited.
Blue Lock episode 12 has finally aired. This is the second to last week of the Blue Lock anime, so we do have a lot to cover. But of course, is this episode any good?
It was alright. Like literally other than Baro popping off, the rest of it was Slide Lock.
Did the animation improve? What are the best and worst moments? And what is the community's reaction to this episode? There was a whole bunch this episode, so let's get into it. We immediately hop straight into Aiku's backstory as well as awakening we left off on the last episode.
I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty disappointed at, Aiku's backstory development. Because like I thought they were really hinting at Aiku just gonna be a striker and gonna score a goal for himself. Like he was told not to be a striker because of his physique and do it for the team, be a defenseman. He gave up on all that shit. But I thought that he would just like be inspired by the egotistic nature of Blue Lock and said, fuck it, I'm going up. And then score a goal and get the lead. I thought something like that was gonna happen, but rather he's like, nah, I'm gonna instead crush the dreams of other strikers trying to make it. That's against me. But at the same time, foster strikers' goals like Sendo on his own team for anyone that's actually struggling. So I guess it's all right. I just wish that he would be very selfish and, went ahead and scored a goal himself.
No doubt Aiku is the best player of the original U20, excluding Sai and Shido, so getting more of the captain's backstory is always nice. And these final episodes are really covering the best parts of the U20 match, so it's hyped to finally see them getting adapted. But we do have to address the big elephant in the room for this episode. Even though the story is good with Aiku, immediately you can tell that there's a difference in the animation.
Nagi was literally floating, that's right. Nagi was the perfect example of Slide Lock.
There's a difference in the animation again. Coming off of last week's high, this episode dimmed down the animation a lot. Aiku was just the start of the episode, but the PNGs and still frames are back even for him. Even though the visuals were nice for Aiku's awakening, there was a lot of still frames for this moment, and it was just in your face this entire time. Like, it'll just be Aiku.
It was very apparent how the quality dropped compared to the last episode. Last episode, yes, the hype moments were done even better. And like the lower priority moments, it felt more fluid than usual. But today's, the most recent episode, it was just Slide Lock all over again. But I think that we can cope. I think that next week, they're gonna do it justice. They should. If they don't, people will be so fucking mad. They wouldn't risk that. They want to give us a good impression at the very end so that we forget all about the PNG lock and Slide Lock and glazed blue lock so that season 3 gets announced.
Talking, and then all of a sudden he's defending Rin. There wasn't really any movement unless it was the PNGs. That's the biggest thing about this episode, what everyone has been talking about. From start to finish, movement just felt very clunky. It didn't feel as fluid as the last episode. It was kind of like the first episodes of the season, lots of cuts to still frames and inner monologue, as well as CGI usage. PNG lock is kind of back, but honestly, I did expect this. I said in last video, I don't think it would get magically better somehow.
Yeah, unless there was another key priority moment, and there kind of was, but I guess they didn't find it as priority compared to Shido's, pop-off moment, right? Gagamaru's save. Reo had a pretty cool moment of using Nagi's, ball movement catch. And then Baro, right? These are pretty important moments, I would think, but I guess not to the caliber of, the previous episode with Shido popping up, so it's expected that this wouldn't get the same type of treatment. I just hope that the finale, it will get that priority.
Especially considering the whole animation situation. It does suck because we're coming off of 2 really good episodes, and this is one of the final episodes, yet the animation just reverted back to what we've been seeing throughout the season. Remember, we're rating each episode by itself. An episode like last episode was good, and they deserve the credit for that episode only. But the things that made last episode good was just not present in this episode, so this episode was disappointing, at least in the animation department.
And here's the thing. A lot of people were just gonna forget about these things too if the finale is really good. And the really fucked up insidious part is that Blue Lock, because of the quote-unquote success of season 2, even though they literally didn't show up for the rest of the classes, right? Remember, the Blue Lock example is a kid that skipped all the classes, didn't do any homework, didn't show up for any labs, showed up on the final exam, and basically just aced it and left. That's what they're doing. There's a couple episodes that's very memorable and good. Basically, the 2 Shido episodes along with the Nagi Goal episode, right? Other than that, the rest of it is pretty fucking garbage, even though the story is hype. But because those, you know, pop-off episodes are so memorable in people's minds, they will selectively ignore all the shitty things that happened in the past and be fine with it. And 8-Bit Studios and the production committee working on this on Bandai Namco Filmworks, they're going to realize that they can keep getting away with it. This will be the new industry standard as consumers will just keep eating this shit up.
And that's obviously the worst part of this episode. The animation kind of lacked at times, but there might be a really good reason for why the animation reverted back to PNGs.
What's the good? There is no good reason. There is no valid reason that the quality of a show like this should be this volatile. The only reason is because they're min-maxing this shit, selectively choosing when to actually put quality in order to save their scarce resources. It's not even scarce, they're just being fucking cheap with it.
For this episode, which we'll cover towards the end, because we still have a lot of this episode left, and unfortunately it's consistently like that for the whole episode, just a lot of still frames. Even for the biggest moment of this episode, the main point, what everyone has been talking about, Baro Shoei's goal even had a lackluster animation. Let's talk about this right now because this is what everyone's talking about, and rightfully so. Goals are supposed to
he is just kind of sliding here, isn't he?
Be the most important parts of the show, and although this goal is
the goal itself was pretty decent. It's definitely not the quality of Shido got. It was pretty decent. That was really hyped up. But now that I'm looking at this again, it is pretty atrocious how he just slid in here.
The most important parts of the show, and although this goal is hype, I don't disagree with that. I think they could have done so much more with it. There was some good moments like the OSTs, voice acting, and the lion aura done very well, but
yeah, those are always good though, right? Like OST, soundtrack, right? Voice acting, just animation aura, random fucking, you know, visual effects. They're always there. It's always perfect. It's great. But that's not the issue, right? That's always going to be great.
It does get outshined by the bad moments like the animation and still frames. Again, the goal is hype, but it felt lackluster in terms of impact because besides the kick itself, everything was just a still frame. Baro running into frame or sliding to actually...
I was too caught up in the moment to even recognize this because obviously Baro showing up was a plot twist, right? No one was expecting Baro to be here. The past was supposed to be Rin, and then Baro showing up with the black-red thunder effects made me so hyped up that, you know, I just caught in the moment. I didn't even think too much of it.
Fighting to actually kick the ball was a PNG where he just kept growing.
Yeah.
And they also removed some frames from the manga, like his eyes, close-ups at different angles. The thing about his goal is it didn't feel as impactful as it should have, especially compared to Shido's last 2 goals we got, where there was a lot of camera angles, fluid movement, impact frames. So that's why people are disappointed when other...
I guess they... the studio just doesn't like Baro as much as Shido or Nagi.
Goals got a lot of build-up or animation. This one didn't get that much love, especially the goal celebration. It just cut to him with his shirt off.
That was pretty... that was actually funny. It was hilarious how out of nowhere he already had his shirt off and it was just floating.
Shirt off. It wasn't the worst goal, but it wasn't the best goal. It was kind of just mid. I think we've gotten way worse, but again, we can't really expect much. We already know how low the bar is going to be. People are just frustrated though because of this adaptation. We'll talk about the community reaction and what they think in a second. We first have to cover the rest of the moments in this episode. We get Blue Lock defending and the U-20 also going for its attack. It was just a lot of CGI usage and cuts, like I said. When Rayo marks Shido and Shido runs past him, we got the cardboard cutouts again. There was a few standout moments though, and we got to give props when props are due. Gagamaru's block, I think, was a very good moment, even though it was a still frame. They don't show his body springing up. It was just a fancy cut, but the way they...
I'm glad that Gagamaru is having some moments, man. The keepers obviously is not the most, you know, attractive role in soccer, especially for a fucking show where it's all about strikers, but Gagamaru having some of this stuff is really cool. I kind of wish that Gagamaru would also just get a goal somehow, you know what I mean? Just ditching the net and just fucking running up, just saying fuck it, run it down mid, and Gagamaru gets a goal. That would be so cool to me.
They executed it and made the block flow very nicely. When you compare it to other moments like when Isagi or Aiku does a play and there's 1,000 inner dialogues, it disrupts the flow, especially when they do the inner dialogue visual with all the floating bubble particles and it looks like we're in a fish tank. I understand they need to separate inner dialogue from outer dialogue, but I think there's a better way to do this so it doesn't disrupt.
I hate it when Isagi starts monologuing, bro. Am I the only one? whenever he starts fucking yapping, I get it. It's important for like us to understand the development through Isagi, to understand the challenges at, you know, stake, and for him to adapt and go on. But holy shit, it really just kills all the momentum and the hype. Everything happens in a fraction of a second. He just fucking yapping essays worth of content. Everything is just still frame. The puzzle effects, it's kind of cool, I guess, but god damn, it is just, his dialogue is so dense in nature, but that's being faithful to the source material. So like, how do you get rid of this? You don't. You can make it more concise by cutting out some dialogue, I guess, but still, it's just, I don't know. Whenever he's on the field and he starts yapping, the whole show just slows down.
Disrupt the flow, which then makes people focus on the animation. Following this block though, Ryo's possession steal was absolutely amazing though.
Yeah, it was.
Copying Nagi and the visuals with the chameleon, I loved here. This
Ryo's scene was actually really cool.
was just executed so well. I'm glad they made it into his purple color, as well as made Ryo basically turn into Nagi. And the OST choices for both Ryo's possession steal and Gagamaru's block was very good. In fact, I think the OST choices for this whole episode was very good. I actually saw a lot of people talking about how the background music choice weren't that good for this episode.
Really?
But I honestly have to disagree. I think it was one of the best things here, because a lot of different players got their own unique OSTs, or we got returning OSTs, and it fit very well for these moments. For example, when Itoshi Sai goes up against Isagi.
Yes, that was really cool, because everything was very good. It was progressive build-up for Isagi's, you know, clutch, whatever, like playmaking skills he was doing. And then the hype soundtrack, the positive soundtrack, immediately gets muted. And then Sai's boss theme, that's right. His soundtrack starts playing and it's such a different tone. It sets the mood perfectly.
Sai actually got a final boss OST. Like, this guy cut off Isagi's song and started playing his own song. This was a huge moment, specifically Itoshi Sai and Isagi going up against each other. And again, the visuals and art were good per usual with Blue Lock Season 2. I really enjoyed Isagi quote-unquote drowning in the puzzle pieces. I think this was a nice touch, but it's just in your face with the animation when they're staring at a ball for 10 seconds, sliding across the screen. You just can't ignore it. That's the thing. There is amazing content here. All of this is amazing.
And it's carrying. The amazing content and the story is fucking hard carrying. And I gotta also say, it's not just that, because remember, if it was just amazing content and story, it wouldn't be enough. It's about the direction, the adaptation of that content and story for the studio and the team that are working on it to understand how to actually translate, you know, the amazing content and story into the animation, you know, into the anime. Tower of God can't do that. I still bring that shit up. I will never fucking finish Tower of God Season 2, bro. That shit's so fucking ass. Like, it's also amazing content and story, right? Or at least that's what I've been told. But there is no same weight of hype because they don't know the understanding of how to fucking, like, direct that story.
Content from Aiku's awakening to Ryo's possession steal to Isagi versus Itoshi Sai, you can still get hyped watching it. However, the execution or delivery of it was just kind of disappointing. Anyways, with all of that out of the way, we can jump into the community reaction. What do people think of episode 12?
It's all right. It's definitely not the best episode compared to the, you know, the previous episode. I think the previous episode with Shiro, you know, knocking up the goal was definitely the best. But this is also way better than, you know, episode 2 and onwards, the selection exam, where it's just all fucking slide lock. Had a bit of both, right? Slide lock and some hype moments. Overall, I wouldn't really say mid, maybe slightly above mid. In the tier list, I'll probably put it on just good, right? So it goes mid, good, great, peak, right? I don't think this is a really great episode. I think this is just a good episode, I guess.
And also talking about why there might have been an animation decline for this episode.
Let's talk about it.
Now, as you would expect with every single episode,
if the reasoning, the excuse is they are putting all the resources into the finale, that's not a good fucking excuse, bro. Because from the beginning, we need to step out of the box and even wonder, why do we have this limited resources? It's because the fucking production committee are being greedy with this shit. And they're not, you know, allocating the right amount of budget or the talent or the time into this project, right? Sure, you can say that they're saving it for the finale. I understand, but that's a fucking terrible reason. That's a terrible reason for them to justify doing this shit.
Having the still frames and PNG animations, again, people are going to be very disappointed. And I think this time around, it was even worse. I saw a lot of people not even liking Baro's goal in general. I personally still think it was very hype because of the voice acting.
It was
OSTs
very hype.
And the fact that it's Baro. But some people from start to finish just didn't like this goal. I partly think this was because of people's expectations getting raised from Shido's goal back to
Yeah, I mean, if you get something like this quality and then suddenly you're slapped with slide luck again, of course you're gonna be disappointed.
Back, both of them delivered in terms of impact and visuals. And then obviously for Borrow's goal, we don't have any of that, not even half of it. So it's obviously worse since we've seen what they can do. Remembering the goals that got justice, or even just a season 1 animation, it makes sense why people are frustrated.
And the worst part is, you know they can do better. This is not a lack of talent like the Tower of God situation, right? The Answer Studio, they don't got it, bro. They have no talent. They have no vision there. I'm not really disappointed that, you know, they're ruining Tower of God. It makes sense to me that they're ruining Tower of God because they fucking suck. It's a skill issue. But for Rapist Studios, we know they can do it. They have shown us time after time that they can do it, but they selectively turn the kill switch on or off when they want to crank it up. Because again, this is the new industry practice. Maybe it's not new, but I think it's going to be more common, especially for 8-bit studios and Bandai Namco, you know, production committee projects where they're gonna just choose when to have quality and when not in order to, you know, get as much as money as possible.
A lot of people were comparing this episode to episode 2, the infamous episode with a lot of PNGs, as well as the first U20 game episode where everything but Nagi's goal was straight still frames.
Yep.
However, I did see a lot of praise for Ryo's copy or the visuals for Isagi versus Sai, and I completely agree. These moments deserve the highlight because they were done so well. Again, giving credit when credit is due, but not ignoring what's in our faces. We have to cover it all. Anyways, even though there was a lot of still frames and overall animation flaws, there might be a good reason that...
All right, let's hear this fucking reason, because again, if the good reason is saving it for the finale, that's a terrible reason.
A lot of people are forgetting, and that's the fact we're getting both.
The only reason you can give me right now is that whatever animator, whatever people working on episode 12, a terrible accident happened. Someone became comatose. Someone got injured so badly, they lost staff. Then I'd be like, you know what? Valid reason. That's something you can't control. That's fucked up. I get it. But if it's just min-maxing again, saving it just for the finale, that's a terrible reason.
Both episode 13 and 14 airing at the same time next week, which means they're making 2 episodes at once.
Yeah,
One
I
of
know.
the biggest problems for the season was the deadlines, and it's been confirmed by animators themselves, and I'd assume they're even shorter this time around due to releasing 2 episodes back to back. These are the final 2 episodes of the season, literally the end, so some people are saying the animation will be better for these ones since they didn't put as much effort into this episode's.
Of course, the finale is going to have polish, right? It has to. Intuitively, if they're going to do a back-to-back episode, and I really appreciate that they're going to do back-to-back episodes, then like, yeah, I as much as we're shitting on the team working on this and, you know, the committee that planned this shit, and again, I don't blame the animators. They're just working with whatever garbage that they've been given. Like, I do appreciate that they're going to do a back-to-back finale, but again, without blaming the animators, if you think of it from a project management, you know, perspective, this is a terrible reason. This reason should never been in play, but it's not a perfect world. We gotta work with what we got, and if this is the only way that they can make episode 13 and 14 great, then I guess a sacrifice must be made.
Specifically, and they're focusing on the last 2 episodes. However, in my opinion, as much as I want to be hopeful, and I do think they'll deliver for the final moments of the...
If they don't, I'll be surprised. I'd be shocked. Because again, the final episode, based, like, if they deliver that, like, Shiro-like episode all the way through, people will have such a good impression of Blue Lock of how it ended, of U20 arc, that they'll forget about Slide Lock. They'll be lenient and will be willing to just ignore that shit. People are very selective with their memories, and they'll completely forget the terrible. Just like Hashira training arc for Demon Slayer. It worked for me, man. The finale was just so stupid hype that I was like, fuck it. I don't care if Tanjiro spent 10 minutes throwing fucking airplanes and counting it with Muichiro. I don't care. The finale was that good. So like, come on. You gotta deliver here. This is the moment to show up. This is the final exam that you skipped all the classes. You skipped all the labs, all the homework. You gotta show for the final exam in clutch.
The match, they haven't had a really good track record with that. That's why I say it might be a good reason, because even though this episode feels way low effort compared to the rest, that doesn't necessarily mean that the next 2 episodes will be any better.
There's no confirmation, right? We're all just working based on logical just guesses. Like, it does make sense that if they're gonna go out hard, that they should have it good.
For example, at the start of the season with the 3rd selection, when everyone all thought they were saving their time and budget for the U20,
And they kind of did. You know what I mean? Relative to the earlier content, the copium actually came to reality.
There was really no difference until Nagi and Shio's goals. So even though people are saying they spent more time on the last 2 episodes rather than this episode, it's still not confirmed, so we're gonna have to wait and see.
We'll see.
We got 1 more week of the Blue Lock anime with the last 2 episodes, and if you've been along for the ride, I'd appreciate if you would hit that subscribe button. It's been a crazy ride, but thank you guys so much for showing up week by week. Just catching you up on episode 12 and everything you need to know. If you made it to the end though, thank you guys.
Y'all know what to do. Please go show Hiryo some support. Go check his video out. Give it a like. Go sub to him if you'd like. And yeah, we have no confirmations, no guarantees that the finale episode next week will be as good quality as the Shiro episodes, right? But I think it just makes logical sense that if they're going to be concluding with the back-to-back episode, and if their goal is to give people a good impression despite the bullshit that they've served us, it should be pretty decent, right? I'll see you guys next time.